that we need to continue to stand strong to defend everybody's rights and freedoms.
Hey guys, how you doing today? I'm doing this as, my follow-up that I promised 5 days later. You kind of got 5.5 days just to be sure. Just to be sure, just in case somebody wanted to reply last minute, all that jazz, you know what I mean. Well, nobody replied. I got a couple of automated replies that came back from my email. If you haven't seen the email, I think the video is called Public Statement. Just a couple days ago it was put out, and yeah, so I wrote an email demanding to understand what public statements to a Canadian citizen were in these private meetings, because I felt justified in asking what these meetings were about and the conversations that were had. And my justification is based on, how can I put this? Presumed government interest and the role government officials play in our democracy. As a Canadian citizen, I expect my government, when they speak in their official capacities, are speaking on behalf of their departments, and those departments are providing information to the Canadian citizens. So when they have private meetings, I don't normally care so much about private meetings, but the private meetings that they were holding with Mark Carney, because Mark Carney laid claim that he's having private meetings over the Donald Trump tariff situation. Now, normally I wouldn't care, but this is an existential threat to all Canadians. It's not just to Mark Carney or the banking industry or business industries. This is all Canadians are currently suffering under this existential threat. And currently our government is shut down. It's prorogued. These liberal government officials. Now, technically, we still have a functional government because we still have ministers that are responsible to do ministerial duties. And that includes speaking with the public and keeping the public informed, especially about existential threats to Canadians' society. So when I hear they're having private meetings with Mark Carney, it rung bells in my head. It rung a lot of bells in my head because, well, what gives him the special treatment that he gets private meetings on the proposed ideas, legislation, the regards to meetings with Trump officials. He's just a private citizen at this point. Yes, he's running for leadership of the Liberal Party of Canada, but that's irrelevant. The Liberal Party of Canada is not my government. And these ministers, as much as they may be part of the Liberal Party of Canada, work for all Canadians. So when they're having private meetings with a private citizen, those especially when it involves all Canadians, affects all Canadians. So when they're discussing their strategy for dealing with the Trump tariffs, if they're willing to speak with one Canadian citizen, those comments should be made public to all Canadian citizens. But that's not what's happening. No. Mark Carney gets special privilege because of his status and his connection with the Liberal Party of Canada, which is irrelevant to me. I really don't care that you are part of the Liberal Party or you're not part of the Liberal Party. You're an outsider who's been dictating policy in Canada for the last 5 years. It doesn't matter to me. Common cattails. It's completely irrelevant. You see, when my Minister of Finance goes and has a private meeting with you, I probably wouldn't think twice. But when my Public Safety Minister has a meeting with you, or my Immigration Minister has a meeting with you, that's not the banking industry. That affects all Canadians. So those statements should be public. And then the day I released that video, or was it the next day? I think it was the day of. Trudeau came out and actually proved my point. You see, he had a private meeting with a whole bunch of business leaders discussing the Trump tariff situation. But what he did is he kicked all the reporters out of the room so that it couldn't be public knowledge. Okay? Now, this is not to give him grace on this, but I am going to be fair in my assessment of it. Trudeau, all those business leaders paid a fee to attend that meeting and have Trudeau speak at it. So that, technically in a roundabout way, makes them a consultant or, advisor. It's very complicated, but it basically sort of gives them, a kind of out, but not really an out. Because what he said matters to every Canadian. You see, the FCC laws in Canada, actually around the world, they have strict rules when it comes to insider trading. But what the Liberal Party of Canada is doing is releasing information to a select few Canadians and business leaders for their own benefit before the public gets the information. And that, my friends, is basically insider trading. Are you telling me that Mr. Carney and all these business leaders that went to that meeting took that information and did nothing with it? If Canada's going to enter into an extremely troubling financial time, you would think a banker would make adjustments. And they would turn around and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't invest here. Maybe we should invest in this spot. Mark Carney deals with international corporations. Matter of fact, he's even claimed that instead of running for prime minister, he'd rather sit on chair a board meeting for BlackRock. This is one of his comments. BlackRock is a major international company that what the heck is this? Huh. Interesting. Cool. BlackRock is a major corporation. Oh my goodness. Would you look at him? Huh. Major corporation that works for and by the WEF, World Economic Forum thing that's been creating policies in Canada without Canadian consent. Well, manipulating Canadian consent based on their perceived views of how the world should work, and manipulating Canadians to this effect. Anyway, so Mark Carney took this information, probably provided some assistance in creating the strategies that were going to combat the Trump tariff situation. And yet, for some reason, Canadians are not allowed that information. And that is a conflict of interest to the Canadian people. You see, when you took your oath to be the Minister of Finance, or the Minister of Immigration, or the Minister of Public Safety, all these ministries, it was an oath to the Canadian citizens. And when you make a public statement to a citizen, it means that's a public address. You can't withhold, especially in these times, you can't withhold that information from Canadians and give it only to a select few who can profit from it. And this is where we have a problem. And this is why I wrote to my email. You see, when Trudeau was at his business meeting with all the business leaders and they kicked the reporters out of the room, a mic was left on. And what he said directly affects every single Canadian. But that information in the selected hands of those business leaders that were only in that room at that time are the only ones that were supposed to benefit from that information. And what was that information that Trudeau released? Trump is serious about acquiring Canada and becoming the 51st state. As you can hear, Donald Duck is laughing at you. Sounds like a goose. It's all them truckers, I guess. Honk, honk, honk. You see, that information is very, very vital to investment policies of businesses, investment strategies. It's also vital for Canadian citizens to understand the predicament that we are currently in. He did not offer that information to the Canadian citizens. No, he did not. He offered that strictly to business leaders. So the business leaders are allowed to benefit from information that directly affects all Canadians. But Canadians aren't entitled to that information. And this is very, very troubling. This is extremely troubling. It shows the level of corruption within our government, within our democracy. The disdain and disregard that our politicians and our federal government hold towards the citizenry of this country. The people they're supposed to be accountable to. Isn't it funny? Yeah. So no, of course they did not respond. I did not expect them to respond. But I did want to call them out for it. And give them an opportunity to actually save some face. But no, they chose to disregard Canadians yet again. Another Canadian citizen just tossed by the wayside. You know, it's just throw you over there. You're irrelevant. You don't donate to my Liberal Party of Canada. You didn't pay to come to that dinner. You haven't formed the economic policy of this country. the way an international banker has, who's lost his international reputation because, well, you listen to the Prime Minister of Great Britain talk about what Mark Carney's leading the Bank of England did to that country. Yeah, that's something, all right. Anyway, I also want to talk about a couple other little things that came up this week. I hear Polyev actually said something I've been saying for a very, very long time. And he didn't say it in the same context I've been saying it, but it's very similar mindset. And this one impressed me. I was highly impressed with, and gives me great hope. But then he followed it up with something stupid again, and almost shattered all that hope. So let's talk about Polyev now. Polyev says that, oh, I got somebody coming. I'm going to pause in a minute and I'll get right into Polyev. All right. Great lady walking by. Anyway, where was I? Polyev. So he said two things. One, really pissed me off and it annoyed me, and he just doesn't get it. And two, he said something that actually is very relevant, and I've been saying for a very, very long time. I'm going to start with the one I like the best, because I think that one's important. Because the next one, the other one, I actually want to talk about Canadian citizens with that one. He said he's going to put a pause on all government aid outside of the country, because we have enough problems in our own country to deal with that we can't deal with other people's problems. And that's exactly what I always say on this channel. I have said it for a very long time. I don't speak on other countries. I don't speak on the US, even though I've got a lot to say about it. I don't speak on it. I don't speak on what's happening in Ukraine. I don't speak about Russia. I don't speak about China. I don't speak about all these things unless it directly comes back to Canada. Because I've always said I have enough problems in my own country that I don't have time to deal with the rest of the world. I need to stay focused on Canada first. And Polyev, kudos to you, dude. I was proud of that statement. I was very proud of that statement. Very happy to hear it from one of my politicians who's actually putting Canada first for a change. Cares what's happening around the globe. When we got problems here, we need to deal with those. Now, the thing he said that really annoyed me, and my goodness, I'm just like dumbfounded how dumb we can be. Actually, I'm just going to go down this path over here because it loops back around. He said that for the Trump tariffs on aluminum and steel, Trump tariffs on aluminum and steel were nothing to do with Canada. They were globally. And I really thought Polyev was beginning to get it, because he started backing off of talking about retaliation, tariffs, and all this jazz. And he had been talking about other ways of dealing with Trump. But he reverted back, and I'm sorry. This is just dumb. Okay? Polyev, you said that you're going to retaliate against these 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel by putting 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel coming in from the US. I mean, this is just dumb, man. It's so dumb. You talk about Canada first. Why are you penalizing Canadians for buying aluminum and steel? It makes no sense. It's counterproductive. It's against what you're talking about. But you keep making these sound bites like this, and you know, you fill them with little nuggets of actual good policy, but then you come out and you say something stupid like this. We don't need to punish them for their tariffs. You understand what Trump is doing, right? I really hope you do. You obviously understand it a bit because you're in the Arctic to make this announcement. Talking about opening new military bases up there, protecting our sovereignty in the Arctic. You get it. Trump's whole 51st state thing is about protecting the United States. The tariffs thing is nothing to do with that. The tariffs thing is the new tax structure that America is going to be implementing. And I've told you before, and I've requested from you months ago, that Canada should go to a consumption tax only. Remove all barriers to earning income, as in, do not charge any money to earn money in Canada, and go to consumption only tax. And this is what the world needs right now. Trump has realized it, and that's why he's going to a tariff tax system, dropping all the taxes on companies and people working so that he could generate revenues through tariffs. And it's smart. I think it's a little presumptuous to assume that the world will continue to do business with you when you do something like this. But fair enough, you are the world superpower. There's a very good business model there currently. I think it'll run into issues over time, but that's an entirely different conversation. Currently, it's not a bad business model. You know, the citizenry reap the benefits of doing business in the United States. It's a fair policy. But to penalize Canadians for buying American stuff, like, what did you want them to do? Okay, you're going to put these counter-tariffing, and you're going to charge Canadians 25% more to buy American steel and aluminum. So that's going to make Canadians shop around for steel and aluminum. Do you think they're buying Canadian? If they're already going to the US to buy aluminum and steel, do you think possibly they might look at Chinese aluminum and steel? Who would you rather Canadians buying this from? Like, I don't understand why you're penalizing Canadians for shopping with our closest neighbor. Yes, Trump has put 25% tariff on Canadian aluminum and steel. Wow, that really sucks. You know, our great aluminum and steel just went up 25% in cost to the Americans. Not Canadians. To the Americans. Yes, it may impact our exports to the United States because of these tariffs. You know, companies buying our steel and aluminum down there are going to buy less. Yes, that is a direct impact. I agree. It really is. And that sucks. But it doesn't affect Canada as a whole. It affects a segment of Canada. Your effect is Canada as a whole. All Canadians have to pay this 25% extra if they buy from America. So when I buy my truck that was built in America, does that mean I got to pay 25% extra because it was used, because it has American steel in it? Like, what? So you want me to buy Chinese or Japanese, or no? Can't buy a Tacoma because that was built in Texas. Like, what? It's so dumb. You're penalizing Canadians for trading with our biggest trading partner, our strongest ally, the man we're trying to win back respect of. You're going to penalize Canadians for actually doing business with them. That's just so dumb. And Canadians, I'm really getting annoyed with you. God, this is so stupid. We're just like running around in circles, chasing our tails. Ring around the rosy, pocket full of posies. Hush now, we all fall down. Because that's exactly what we're going to do. We're all going to fall down. We're being dumb. Oh, buy Canada only. Okay, well, Tim Hortons is still lined up, so I guess that's not going over very well. Oh, that's a Canadian company. No, it isn't. It's an American company. We're still buying stuff from them. They sold out to the Americans, remember? But they're still chock block full. Booing the American flag. How dumb and childish are you? Like, where's the logic in that one? What, because you don't like that Donald Trump is actually protecting his citizens, you're going to boo their flag? Are you stupid? You should be cheering their flag because their government actually wants to stand up for their citizens. But no, we want to boo their flag and hold up Carney as our savior. Are you kidding me? The man doesn't work for Canada. He works for the international organizations. So, they're just hypocrites. And we're being dumb about this. Stop this buy Canada first. Okay? If you weren't willing to buy Canada first before Trump came along, what the hell gives you the moral authority to try and tell everyone else to buy Canada first now? That's so dumb. It really is. If Canada wants to sell to its own citizens better, it needs to start manufacturing. We don't manufacture jack here anymore. We extract resources. We sell the resources to someone else who can process them, who sells the processed stuff over to someone else who's going to make something, and then they're going to sell that something back into Canada. That's how we do it. It's the dumbest thing ever. Canada doesn't manufacture. We're hypocrites. We're just singing Ring Around the Rosie. Oh, let's tariff him back. We're all in this reactive situation instead of actually paying attention to what Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump is talking about security, and he's restructuring the tax code for the United States. The 51st state thing, it's not a joke. He's dead serious about it. And why is he dead serious about it? Look at our military. How the hell are we supposed to protect Canada with what we have as security forces for it? We are a joke to them. So, in summary, our federal government ignores us, disregards us, provides financial incentive for business leaders to make insider trading strategies based on activities of our government that it withholds from the Canadian citizens to exclusive right of liberal insiders. Our opposition leader, presumed future prime minister, is talking nonsense. Hi, I'm sorry to disturb your meal, but can I walk by you? I don't like scaring you, but I do want to walk this way. I promise I won't harm you. Anyway, our opposition leader, Jagmeet. Jagmeet and his Tesla attack. Are you stupid? I'm not even going to bother with Jagmeet. Jagmeet's just a joke. But this truly is something to be astonished at. Canada is a joke. We're running around flailing our arms in the air, crying wolf, or crying the sky is falling. And we're the ones throwing the stones in the air to let it hit us in the head. Stop playing the hypocrite. Stop being dumb. You're hired to do a job. Do that job. That's all we ask of you. Keep Canadians informed so that they can make better decisions. And if they decide, okay, well, I need to buy Canadian only. Okay, fine, you're buying Canadian only. Whatever. But don't you tell everybody to go buy Canadian only to suit your happiness. You see, I believe in what Trump is trying to do for his citizens. I don't necessarily agree with how it's impacting my country, but I kind of understand why he's doing it. The tax structure as it stands these days is unsustainable. It's unproductive. It's actually destructive to our economy. Anyway, this is my babble. And I thought I'd share it with you about this week's political events. So, welcome to the Fringe. Welcome to the Fringe.